Well, hey everyone, and welcome to my class on using AI Assistant for copy editing. Now, I designed this class because, a lot of the time when we think about using AI, it's for this creative purposes. We're generating images or using text-to-speech for our characters, or really just using it for more big picture type creative work. But what I find is that a lot of my day-to-day AI use actually feels more like what I used to do with Grammarly, only now I can do it right in my courses. And that's what this class is all about, using AI Assistant as a copy editing partner. So what we'll do is we'll look at going beyond the default prompts that you have in AI Assistant, which are fantastic for most types of needs. And we're going to use that AI edit field, that prompt field, as an open prompt. So I'll show you how to tell AI Assistant to give you exactly the kind of editing help you want and get you really expand what's possible with AI Assistant. Now I'm actually going to do everything here in Rise today for the class, because just with that vertical scrolling, it just gives a little bit easier, a little bit more room to display the examples and the prompting, but everything works exactly the same in Storyline. And honestly, some of the examples will actually probably work better in Storyline because you have that fixed size slide, and so things like equal line lengths and character counts actually makes probably a little bit more sense. But everything's going to work the same in both apps. All right, with that, let's go ahead and dive in and get started with just a quick review of AI Assistant's Write and Edit inline feature. All right, so I'm working on a course here in Rise, and it's for traditional classroom teachers who are moving to e-learning. Now, one of the things that we'll use AI Assistant for the most is really to edit or revise our content. We can also generate content, and we'll look at that, but I think that just revising content is going to be one of the most common. And the way we do that is just select the sentence or paragraph or the word, well, probably not the word, but everything else, a sentence or a paragraph, just select it, and then you get the floating toolbar, and then we can just choose Edit with AI. And that's going to pop open the Edit, Write, and Edit. I'm going to move that off to the side right here. So you have these pre-built prompts, and these are really fantastic for quickly making common edits, as well as ensuring a consistent fix that's applied across all of your content. Meaning, if I say simplify writing, this simplify writing command or prompt is already baked in, and so the same type of prompt will be applied here in this paragraph, as well as it will any other block or lesson that I use it in. So that's a really great way to have that consistent writing style or tone. Then we can also change specific tone right here for more professional, casual, or even custom. So custom might be, I want you to speak like you're talking to your best friend, or maybe write it in a tone that's similar to a Southwest cowboy, right? So maybe something, you want to see what that looks like? That's just going to be a little funny, to a Southwest cowboy, right? Just to give you an idea of how varied and how many options and ways that you can use this to create that specific voice. Well, now as the world of education keeps on changing, it's high time for them teachers to saddle up, right? Probably not common in the most of e-learning courses that you write. However, this is how you can use that tone. I'm going to cancel out of here, and I'll pop this open again. So when you say, change tone in custom, you can go beyond whatever these default prompts are to help personalize your message. And then each time you needed to change tone in other blocks or lessons, you would just make sure to write that same prompt for your custom. The audience is also another one that can have a big impact on the writing. So if I said rewrite this for an intended audience of a fourth grader, it's going to be much different than I said for sales managers, things like that, right? So that voice and the language used and the sentence structure, the complexity of the writing will all be adjusted based on how you specify what that custom audience is. All right, so this is the edit and refine, working with the built-in prompts. The explain this is another one that's really good. It's going to help break down concepts. This is really great for technical writing or any more of the complicated concepts that you're working on. I actually find this helpful for me when I'm trying to explain something new, when I'm working on a course for a client and I just don't have it down. I might just use explain this to give me the context to help me rewrite and work that out. Also things like create an analogy. Let's just check out what that looks like. So this is another way to help explain concepts. So we have education evolves, teachers must embrace. And then with the analogy, we get a garden tends to diverse plants and vibrant ecosystems. Educators must cultivate their online teaching. So you're connecting something, right? So I could say create an analogy based on, say, moving from classroom to e-learning. It could be moving from let's say this an urban environment to a suburban environment, right? Moving from the country to the city, so you can make some connection or bridge between what's known and what's not known, what's new. So you have all these built-in prompts. The benefit to these is they are going to, now we can change it into a bulleted list. What they're going to do is, and I'll say insert below, so we have a list version of these items, of that paragraph. But what this does is give you a consistent prompt across all of your content. And this is going to work the same in Storyline, so you can quickly apply a consistent voice, style, and format to what you're working on. Now, another way that we're going to work with this often is by, let's just come in here, I'll say new text block, and I'll delete this, and that is to create content. So we can click the plus icon right here, and let's open up AI Assistant, and I can just start from scratch. So if I needed to expand my content or I needed to add a quick section, I can have AI Assistant just create something using general knowledge from scratch. So let's just say we're at one paragraph about the common types of classroom, all right, that's not a good sentence, room activities that are recreated in e-learning. So let's see what that comes up with. So this will give me a list, and then I might say, let's bring this down a little bit, maybe turn it into a bulleted list. So it's going to be a little easier for me to see. So I'm looking for some ideas. There we go. So it gave me a list of items. Here I have interactive discussions, group projects, quizzes, assessments, simulations, and role play. Right? So I can either use this as my content, refine this, or I could use this as source material that I can use to then craft my own content. So you're either creating, refining your content with AI Assistant, or you're generating new content, but those features are all baked in. Those are the default prompts that are available to you across all lessons, block types. Same thing with Storyline, but that's the easiest and most common way to get started is with those built-in prompts. All right, in this lesson, we'll look at, I think this might be the only default prompt we're going to look at, and that is the fixing spelling and grammar. And the reason I like this one, and this why I still use this one, I don't have a custom prompt for this one, and that is spell check is available in Rise and Storyline. That's standard. But grammar check isn't. And a lot of times you'll have poor grammar or some mistakes in your writing, and it's not evident unless you have really, you're really reviewing and editing the content. So it's not something that you could easily miss. So I do like running this. This is something that obviously apps like Grammarly will do by default, but again, that just requires copying content, out and then back into Rise or Storyline or whatever you're working with. So let me show you how this one works real quick. Obviously it's a built-in, it's a default, so we have access to it just from that drop down. But what I'll do here is I'm going to duplicate this. And so what I have highlighted here are not the misspelled words, because the spelling is all correct, but I did highlight the grammatical errors. So what I like to do is just duplicate the block just so we have it. So we have two of these together. I'm going to select all of the content here in the paragraph, and then from the floating toolbar, we'll just say edit with AI. And then right there, second one of the most popular, fix spelling and grammar, and that'll recognize the grammar errors. So I like to do that just as a quick last check, things that I would do if I were pasting my entire, block content into Grammarly, but I have that available to me right here in Rise and Storyline. And then I can see that the words have changed, knowing versus know, essentials, and things like that. So the fixing spelling and grammar, it's baked in, nothing I would add or subtract from it. It does a fantastic job, does exactly what it advertises, and it's a good last pass on your content before you submit for review. And that is taking a really long block of text and asking AI Assistant to group it or chunk it into smaller, more meaningful, well-defined sections. It can even add clear headings to help simplify and improve readability, as well as screen navigation for assisted technologies. Now, the reason we're doing this is a lot of times we end up with these huge walls of text, maybe because we did some quick note-taking, or maybe because we recorded our subject matter experts, and now we've got this giant transcript of content that hasn't been structured or even cleaned up. And this is the perfect place for a custom prompt, because what we're going to do is we're going to tell AI Assistant to clean this up and structure your content into meaningful sections, and even include semantic headings for each of the sections. So let me show you how this one works. So I actually have a couple prompts right here on this one, and that is because sometimes I get different results depending on what day of the week it is I'm running it. But the idea is we've got two. One is very simple, organize the content into well-structured paragraphs, and the other is add descriptive headings that reflect the main ideas of each section. So let's just start with the first one, see what we get. A lot of times that's all I need. And again, the thing to keep in mind with these prompts is that they can change as AI assistant evolves, as just AI improves. There's going to be prompts that worked one day and then you might have to modify them. The good news is it's not coding. You're not having to code this, meaning that if you get a word or two wrong, it doesn't matter. It knows what you're talking about. So here's my text. This was from a transcript, and it's a big block of text. I obviously could go in here and start to make sense of it, but I think it's a little bit faster sometimes to ask AI to help. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this. So I have my original, and I'm just going to select all of this text, Control A, and then I'll come over down here in the floating toolbar, just choose Edit with AI, and I'm going to drop that prompt in there right there. So organize the content into well-structured paragraphs. Let's see how it does on this one, and we just go ahead and give it a try. So, okay, it looks like it's adding the titles for me this time. So again, like I've done this several times. Sometimes the titles get added, other times it doesn't, and I just need to tell it to add the titles. So let's go ahead and replace the selection, and I want to call out something really important. You can see where it added the title, because it basically is taking the idea or the essence from the very first sentence of each of the ideas. But if I select these titles, come down here, and under paragraph formatting, look at that. That's an H2. That's a true H2 heading, which means if your learners are using a screen reader to navigate, these headings are going to be properly announced because they are proper headings. They're not just bold text that have been made larger as the text. Here's another version of the prompt. I just included this down here. Again, I have done these for many months, and sometimes it works one way, but here's one that it says organize the content and also include descriptive heading H2. Again, we didn't have to do it this time. I can say, what is today? Today's Thursday, so I guess Thursdays you don't have to use the long prompt, but really a fantastic way to kind of move past that big wall of text and get your content structured, at least as a starting point for further revision or for expansion. But it does a lot of that heavy lifting for you just with that AI assistant single prompt. Moving right along, our next one is the active voice. And this is one that I used to see a lot when I managed new e-learning designers. And it could be tricky, I get it, to make that shift from the formal academic tone of writing to the more conversational tone that's so important in e-learning. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to look at how to use a simple custom prompt in AI Assistant that'll transform your writing into active voice. So from passive to active. Keep everything still clear, direct, and easy to follow, but just a simple prompt dropped in and make a quick change. So here's what it looks like. I have the prompt right here. I'm just going to copy this one, which is telling us to, what is it telling us to do? Copy, edit the text to favor active voice over passive, making sentences clearer, stronger, and more direct. All right, let's come down here, and we have another of our starter text right here before example, and I've highlighted the areas where it's in the passive voice. So I'm going to duplicate this real quick, and again, you can just see how quickly this works. Just select your text and open up AI Assistant, edit, and we'll drop that prompt in there right there, make that sentence more active, click enter, and we can see what it comes up with. So I'm pretty confident this is going to work. I'm going to say replace selection, and we can do a quick compare and contrast. Is achieved through, training requires, right? Automatically made those changes. You must understand, should be understood to you must understand. And that's how easy this one is. What I would recommend also is, this is a longer prompt. I would save these maybe in your own notepad or something. But a lot of times you could just say rewrite this in the active voice, and that might be enough. And the more specific you are, the more intentional AI Assistant's going to be with your edits. But just keep that in mind that that's another option for you for modifying your text, especially more passive or academic type writing, and moving that into the active voice. All right, so this next one comes straight from Strunk and White, and it's this. Make the paragraph the unit of the composition. And so what does that even mean? Well, simply it just means one idea per paragraph or per slide or per content block if you're using rise. So each paragraph should be focused on one main point or one main idea. Now, the idea, it sounds simple enough, but it's actually a really common mistake in e-learning where we have too many ideas or too much content really put together on a single slide. So here's how we can fix it. All right, one idea clearly expressed. I have two prompts right here. I kind of bounce back and forth between the two of these. This first one's a little simpler. The second one is focused a little bit more on learning. So rather than one clear idea, we have one clear learning idea. And instead of the author tone and content, we have instructional tone and content. So just a couple variations of it. Actually, I keep both of them because I get different results sometimes. So I bounce back and forth between those. So in our example, let's just duplicate it real quick. We have in bold multiple ideas per content block. So what we want to do is restructure this, and this is where AI is really good at helping us, and combine or rearrange these in a way that keeps a single idea per paragraph. So here's what we do. We're just going to select everything, drop that prompt in here real quick for AI Assistant, tell it what to do, and go ahead and see what we get. Now, admittedly, sometimes I have to do this twice, but I can tell right now it did not require me to do that, so we look good here. And so what we've done is grouped this content so everything is clearer. Now, here's where this really matters, and that's when you're adding or looking for visuals for your content. Just channel or think of Richard Mayer's multimedia learning principle. People learn better from words and visuals together than from words alone. But when your content you're working with has multiple ideas or points grouped together, it makes it really hard to find that one visual to sum up that main point or content. You have too many ideas on a slide, then how do you know which idea to use to focus on selecting and choosing the right visuals? Or worse, maybe you find multiple visuals, multiple images for representing all of the different ideas. No, that's not effective. Use the prompt to help structure your content, reinforce that each paragraph or slide or lesson block in Rise only has one main point. All right, so this next one also comes straight from Strunk and White, and that is just omitting any needless words. Cut anything from your content that doesn't add meaning. Every word you use should serve a purpose. So here's how it works. We have a really simple prompt again here, and we're just going to select it, and we'll take a look at our very wordy example. I'm kind of curious right here. Let's just do this real quick. I'm going to do a word count. So I'm just going to say calculate word count. Let's see what we have here. Calculate word count. So we'll just have to remember this in our head. We'll just remember what that is. 319 seems like a pretty high number. Let's duplicate this block, and we'll select the content. So everything in bold obviously is considered wordy or extraneous. We'll select the prompt, drop it in there, and let AI Assistant hopefully work its magic, and we'll see how many words we can cut right there. So replace selection. Already it looks a lot tighter. Let's ask real quick, see what is our word count. What is the word count? So 292, what was it? 3 something? So we cut out quite a bit of words. Looks like the paragraphs are certainly a lot tighter. Let's just do a couple comparisons right here for the first one. Classroom-based, important to have a clear understanding. Important to understand the distinct. So it's a lot tighter right there. Those extraneous words have all been removed. So again, just look at using that occasionally. Especially if you're reading your content or using text to speech, sometimes it's not as easy to catch it as if we were reading the words ourselves. But even if you are using text to speech, it's not a bad idea to read the script aloud, just like you would if you were going to record it, because then you'll start to hear what that actually sounds like and hopefully identify some of those extraneous, needless words. All right, so in this next one, we're looking at keeping related words together to avoid confusion. And what that simply means is you're going to place your modifiers and your phrases closer to the words that they actually describe. So when you do that, your sentences become clearer, they're easier to understand, and you can avoid all of that awkwardness. If the words or the modifiers drift too far away, they can kind of twist the meaning of the sentence or just make it sound awkward or confusing. So here's how this one works. So we have our prompt right here, copy edit the text to ensure modifiers and related phrases are positioned. So I'm going to copy this and we'll look at our example. So in this example, I've bolded the key terms that are really in the wrong place, right? So we're talking about knowing available tools enables you to choose tools that enhance learning effectively. We really should see effectively enhance learning right there. Promote active participation effectively. That doesn't even sound right. So effectively should be in front of promote and so on. So let's just do our process. We'll duplicate the block and we'll make a selection here. Control A to select it and edit with AI. So we'll just drop the prompt in there and see what we get right here. All right, replace selection and hopefully everything looks a little bit cleaner. Right, so now we have effectively enhance. That one looks good right there. And then for our second one, effectively promote active participation. So that one is correct. And the successfully progress. And if we look up here for at their own pace successfully in line, right? So there's how easy it is to make those changes. Anyway, that's how you can just use a simple prompt and AI assistant to group those related words together to make your writing as clear as possible. All right, so this next one, based on one of my favorite quotes, I think from Mark Twain, that is, never use a big word where a diminutive one will suffice. And what that really means is just avoid fancy words, keep it simple, use natural, everyday language instead of complex or pretentious vocabulary. And that's because in e-learning, we do have a lot of creative freedom in the words that we choose when we draft our scripts, and that's really great. But sometimes the creativity makes us a little too playful or elaborate with our wording. And what we're really after is clarity, language that communicates better than it decorates. So stick with clear, simple words and they'll always do the job better. So here's how this one works. All right, avoid fancy words. We have our prompt right here. Rewrite the text in a clear, natural voice. Use everyday words instead of formal or inflated ones. All right, just double click that to select it. And if I come down here to the example, we have some big words here, and we just want to quickly trim these. Now, it's easy to see these when they're bolded, right? But if things aren't bolded, sometimes it's easy to skip over them, or maybe it's a word that we like, and so it doesn't feel like it's overly descriptive or innate, and we really should drop that word. So I'm going to duplicate my example here, do a quick selection on all of the content, and edit with AI. We'll drop that prompt in here and see if it can omit those extra or fancy words. So replace selection. So moving from classroom training to online means understanding as opposed to necessitates, and so on. So that's an easy one to use. It certainly is a good last pass to perform on content drafts, just to look for any of those extra words that really aren't adding a lot of meaning to our course. All right, so this next one's all about using parallel construction, and that just means that making sure that all of the parts of your sentences just fit nicely together. When something feels a little off, it's usually because the structure isn't balanced, parts don't match, or maybe the rhythm's uneven in the sentences. And suddenly that just makes everything seem a little awkward or confusing. And it often happens, most often, when things in a list don't follow the same pattern, or phrases don't quite line up. So this is another common edit, a simple mistake that's easy to fix, but it's a great chance to put AI Assistant to work. So here's how it goes. I'm going to copy the prompt right here. And I have an example just to make sure we're all on the same page right here of the unbalanced construction. So we have the sentence, for example, right here. The manager wanted to increase efficiency, improving communication, and that everyone arrives on time, right? So you can see the wording, the infinite to increase is not being used correctly. What we should say is manager wanted to increase efficiency, improve communication, and so on. So it's another one of those simple mistakes that can easily get missed. Here's our example right here. We have it both in paragraph format as well as in a list format. New ideas to encourage creativity and thinking innovatively. That doesn't sound right. And the next steps, which focuses on actionable steps. So duplicate, and we'll just put it to work here. You know how it goes. We'll select it and just let AI assist it. And again, the whole benefit here is these are the common edits that I find in e-learning. But the really big picture, I think, lesson here for you is just looking at that prompt field in AI Assistant as really an open prompt. Tell it what you want it to do. Tell it ways that you want to correct your content, and it'll take care of that for you. So we'll see what it comes up with here. And let's just replace didn't mean to do that. It's going to replace it below. I didn't mean to do that. Let's just select everything up here and delete it. I think once I sort of half pressed that mouse down, I was committed. And there we go. So we went from, let's see if we can compare the first of these, serving a structured guide that outlines activities, discussing points, right? And then we can see activities, discussion points, and specific goals and not achieve, so on. So it looks a lot better right here. New ideas to encourage creativity and innovation. And before we had creativity and thinking innovatively. So that's it. Just another prompt you can add to your toolkit if it's something that you find you see in mistakes in content, or just file it off as a good to know type prompt for maybe those fringe cases for you. All right, moving right along, this next one is all about replacing weak modifiers. And essentially, that just means getting rid of all the words that just don't make your sentences strong or clear. And this is probably the most common offenders, words like very and really. Now, this is one's probably the most personal to me. A book my mom gave me early in high school was Rodale's Word Finder. If you haven't seen that book, it's worth getting. It should be on everyone's shelf. But the whole premise of the book is simply helping writers avoid using very and really. Now, in my speech, I can't say that I fully apply those rules all the time, but in my writing, it's probably one of the things I'm most conscious of. So when we look at AI Assistant for this one, it's actually the shortest prompt. We only have 3 words in our prompt, so it's an easy one to remember. But here we go. So here's our example: strengthen our sentences, weak modifiers, words really, quite, just, and things like that. Oh, those I use those in my speech too much. Let's just try the first one, replace weak modifiers. Come down to our example with classroom to online. So there's all of our reallys and varies. Obviously, they're really, see me using that in my speech. Obviously easy to see when they're bold, but not so easy to catch when they are all of the same formatting. So we'll do a select all and then apply our AI edit prompt and replace those weak modifiers, and most likely it'll omit them or perhaps use a better word. So it requires a thorough understanding. So in this case, right, it's just replacing those. I think the other one I'm saying omit. So here's 2 ways we can approach it. If we used omit, it just requires an understanding of, and so on, right? This time the first prompt is actually going to replace those words with a better, more specific word, which I like. But then again, maybe you think that still feels too wordy, in which case I'd use that first prompt up here to just omit those needless words. And here's a copy of what the book looks like right here. I don't know which version I have. I got it a long time ago, but just a great book to have on your shelf for looking for ways to remove those words that we just tend to use too much. It makes it too easy. But that's how that prompt works in AI Assistant. All right, so for this next one, we're looking at visually balanced lists. And basically what I mean by that is we want to make sure that all of our list items essentially are the same length. They don't have to be exact, but we want them roughly the same length. And that's because when the list items line up visually, it's going to look cleaner and more balanced and more professional. And the benefit to the learner is it's actually easier to read. When you have uneven lists where some lines wrap to the next, it actually makes the screen feel cluttered and can affect cognitive load for the learners. So with the visually balanced list, the lines are essentially the same. It's going to look more professional. And again, it's going to reduce that cognitive load because it's going to be easier for the learner to read. Now, this probably matters more for storyline because you've got that fixed size slide, the fixed slide size, and you don't have that responsive nature of Rise. But essentially it works for both, and here's how it works. So ensure consistent list lengths. And this has always been one of my pet peeves for writing or e-learning pet peeves is when you have list lengths that are different. So if I come down here, You can see right here transitioning from classroom to online. We've got the first couple pretty similar. And this is similar. It doesn't have to be perfect. But then you notice how you have the single word wrap into the next line, and then you even have almost 2 full lines down below. So that just doesn't look professional, and it also makes it tougher for the learners to read. So let's duplicate this, what we have here, and we're going to select all. Actually, not all, because it looks like the title's part of that. So I'm just going to select my list items, drop that prompt in there, and rewrite the list items so they're similar in length for visual balance and readability. So we'll give that a second. Now, one thing we want to do right here, I'm going to replace the selection, is it's obviously going to cut out some words. So you're going to want to make sure that the meaning is still there, that you didn't lose anything, because maybe you need to just make everything longer. But it's a lot cleaner, a lot easier to read, and it's going to reduce that cognitive load for our learners. So this is probably one to bookmark, rewrite the list items to be similar in length. All right, so this next one's all about making sure that our sentences begin consistently. And essentially, that just means that we're using a consistent pattern, a repetition for how we start our sentences. So when the sentences begin with a similar or same way, it's going to create a clear and parallel structure throughout our writing. I know it's a small thing, but it makes a big difference, and it's a really simple prompt here in AI Assistant. So maintaining consistency. All right, so here maintain consistency in sentence beginnings to ensure clear and parallel structure. Come on down here to our example. Let's see what we have here. We have knowing the available technologies, and then the next one, to make, right? And then it's also important to adapt. So we have not the most consistent sentence beginnings. Let's go ahead and duplicate this, apply that prompt, and it'll make that change. And again, these are all pretty straightforward, but I really just want to reinforce that you have that open prompt here in AI Assistant, and you can tell it to do what you want it to do for structuring your writing or editing your writing, right? So we have knowing, and that should be making, of course, and then adapting. So there's a really quick edit, but again, that consistency and how our sentences begin just makes it easier for learners to read as well as comprehend. All right, so this next one's a formatting example, and it's one I've used in e-learning for a long time just to help improve readability. And that's bolding the first word or phrase in a list. And doing that just helps learners quickly spot any key points and quickly grasp the main idea without having to read every single word in that list item. Now I know it's a small change, but it has a big impact. So here's how it works. We want to use this prompt, bold the first word or phrase of each list item. So I think the example we're working with here is pretty short, so it'll probably just be the first word, in this case the action word, and we already have that parallel structure here for our list, so we'll just select the list items. Oh, I guess it's not a separate text block, so there we go, we'll just select those and add that to our prompt. Now this can work in longer lists as well. We'll see bold the first word of each line. But fantastic use, right? So AI Assistant knows that specific instruction, bold the first word or phrase, there it is, and it quickly highlighted those words, which just improves the readability, plus emphasizes, in this case, the action word for each of the steps to make a cup of coffee. Okay, so this next one's a real production efficiency tip, especially if you like to use bolded text for, say, keywords or phrases in your courses. I'm a big fan of that. What we're going to do is we're going to use a prompt to quickly change the color of anything bolded to a specific hex value, a specific color. And the reason we're doing this isn't just for readability, although that does help. That little bit of extra color contrast gives extra emphasis and helps the eyes land right where they should. So it's also a great way to weave in your corporate brand colors throughout your course, keeping everything cohesive and polished. So here's how this one works. So pretty simple prompt. It does exactly what it says it to. Now, for example, this is the hex value of the custom color that I'm using here in Rise. Now, the thing is, if I wanted to change color of any text real quick and I select my colors, I don't have that theme color available to me in the colors. So I have to remember that particular hex value. However, Control A, Control C to copy, and then if we come on down, I don't have to do that. I can have all these bolded terms now be changed to my theme color or to a different emphasis color. So let's just, I've got two separate pieces here. So we'll duplicate. No, is it one? Yeah, I guess it is two. All right, I didn't realize I combined them. So let's make two duplicates here and we'll bring that down. All right, so I wanted to show list items as well. So we'll have to do in two different passes here. So we'll do it for the first one, Control A, and AI Assistant, change that to that specific hex value. Go ahead and do that for me. But it doesn't look any different here, right? Replace it. There we go. Now I've got my brand or my theme color added immediately to my text. Now, why is it when I selected, interesting. Oh, these are different list items. I made this a special list? That doesn't make sense. I guess it does. Interesting. All right, so I should have formatted that. Now I don't think it's any faster because I think it would be faster for me to copy these one by one. I didn't realize this was a regular, I made an actual list block rather than copying each of these into a list within the paragraph format. Anyway, you get the idea. If you have a lot of those terms you're trying to colorize, even if you just copy the hex value each time, it still takes a little longer. I think a prompt in that case would be significantly quicker for adding that color emphasis to your key bolded terms or phrases. All right, so this next one's all about keeping the elements in our sentence, especially lists in this example, in the same grammatical form to maintain clarity and balance with our list. So the main goal, what we're trying to do, we're just making sure that the parts of our sentences are written the same so that they're clear and easy to read. And I actually have two versions here because in a different lesson we looked at using parallel structure to also balance line length, but the main one we're looking at here is just rewrite the list items to ensure parallel structure. So if I look down here at my example, you can see that we obviously with the bolded terms make that easier. Recognizing the key differences, two selects, all right? It should be selecting the best tools and so on. Just an easy fix here, really small, but if we had a longer list or we had different types of content, it might not always be so easy to catch. So let's just duplicate that real quick. Select our list items. We're going to use AI Assistant again, drop it in, rewrite the list items to ensure parallel structure. And so this is a big one. So right there, replace selection. Now we have recognizing, selecting, using, and adapting. A lot clearer than what we had before. All right, and the other version of it I had here was that it would ensure the line lengths for clarity and balance. So if I copy this one, we have parallel structure here, but you see how some of the line lengths are different lengths. This one's a lot longer. This one only has that. Is that a widow or an orphan? I always get confused. I think it's a widow. Anyway, so we'll select that and then we'll apply the second one. So if your list items are irregular in terms of length and you want to get them more consistent, I would just use that second prompt right there, and that should help. Let's see what it looked like. Yep. And again, we're not trying to get them perfect, but if some of them are on one line and others have two lines, that's where you want to have that balance right there for the list items.